Now it's, now this is working. Okay. Okay, very good. So as I was saying, good afternoon. Very good to be back. As you know, I was in the United Arab Emirates, and after that, immediately thereafter in Cairo, and I arrived just 1 hour ago from Cairo. But during this trip, visits to these two very important countries for the IAEA, at the same time, I was negotiating with Iran, and as you know, we had these developments on the issues around Karaj and the cameras, and I felt, of course, that as it is already become our habit to get together and discuss what happened and why it happened. And I felt that I should do it again. I didn't know whether there would be interest after 2 days, but apparently you still have questions, and I would be happy to take them. But before doing that, I thought that since we've been talking about the cameras and what the problems around the cameras are, I thought I would show you the cameras. Can we open this? It's open? And I will explain exactly what the issue is. This is the camera. This is the cameras, the type of cameras that the IAEA has all over the world. These are the cameras that we have all over the world. We have more than 1,000, approaching 2,000 cameras like this all over the world. And this type of camera is the camera that we needed to replace. In fact, the cameras, plural, that we needed to replace. I will let you know. See, how do you open this? Like this. Yeah. These are the cameras. Right? What you can see here, of course, this is the lens. They are installed normally as any camera that you would see. And here the interesting thing is what you see here is the module. This is the module inside of which you have the storage, the memory card that has the information and the images. Okay, let me see. Good. For example, live video. Let's put live video so you will see. No. Anyway. These were the cameras that were damaged. And what is important, and perhaps you may have questions about them and how they work. These cameras cannot be tampered with. These cameras are under seals, although now the seals are not the type of traditional seal we would have like this for our equipment. Now simply when you close it, if you open it, immediately shows that it has been opened, has been tampered with. So these cameras cannot be violated by anybody. Okay. Yes. Sorry? These cameras are commercially available. Of course, it's not that you take them off the rack and you put them in an installation. There is the work that we do, that our experts, Mr. Aparo's team do, inside here. The kind of memory, the kind of encryption that they have. And also the fact that the images that come here are digitalized, cannot be. You remember, like in the movies, when people put footage that does not correspond with reality. What was it? September 11 or one of those? Ocean 11. September 11 was something different. Ocean 11. So you cannot do that. It's information that is. You cannot violate, basically. All right? So These are the IAEA cameras. And I felt it would be interesting, after talking about cameras for so long, that you have an idea. So having seen what was this all about, I can take your questions, or in the sense of what was agreed, or whatever may be of interest for you. Thank you very much.
Oui, je représente la chaîne américaine en langue arabe Al-Hurra. Qui a le droit de voir vraiment les images, les photos? Est-ce que c'est vrai que les Iraniens, ils ont dit qu'on ne va pas donner à l'agence internationale toutes les images qu'après l'accord avec les 4 plus 5,
oui,
plus 1?
Je vous réponds en français ou en anglais pour tout le monde. Vous comprenez l'anglais si
oui,
je réponds en anglais?
Oui, oui.
Alors je vais répondre en anglais.
Oui.
So what he was asking me, for those who do not speak French, is about the images, who can see them, because he heard, and our Iranian counterparts have reiterated that we are not going to be shown these images. If you remember, the installation of cameras and other methods of monitoring were agreed in my trip of February last. And at that time, Iran accepted that we would have some additional means of monitoring and verification in some additional places, apart from those that are covered by the Comprehensive Safeguards Agreement traditional type. And it was part of a negotiation. The negotiation being that we would be able to continue to register the information here, but as the normal, I would say, gesture on our side to allow this to happen, we said, okay, the information can stay in Iran, but it's still under our seals. So it's mine, if I can put it like that, but I can't see it. And at some point, ideally, when the JCPOA agreement is restored, then, right?
Thank you.
Hi, Jayab Safia from Sky News Arabia. My question will be on, now we're hearing from Iran that they are not going to give you any of these footage before lifting the sanctions. Is this something you officially been told about? Are those plans or agreement being affected? Or and the other question is on the United States of America as well. They're not happy about the agreement you signed with Iran. They said it's less than what you achieved in the previous agreements. What's your take on that?
Well, thank you for the question. The question is more or less what the gentleman said, and maybe it is put in a different way. The information will be shared with us the moment there is an agreement. And one of the ideas is that the agreement will come when the sanctions are lifted. So I suppose it's a different way to express the same idea, which is once there is an agreement, this is what I agree. Let's not forget one thing. This thing is an agreement between the IAEA and Iran, right? So when Iran and the IAEA agree to it, we will have access to this information. The precondition or the assumption upon which this agreement was signed was that it would happen when there is an agreement. And I suppose the agreement will come when the sanctions are lifted, but that's for other people to decide. It's for the other negotiation. And the other thing about the United States, I haven't heard that, really. Nobody from the United States have told me that they are dissatisfied with the agreement I reached with Iran on the cameras.
Thank you very much, DG, for giving us the opportunity to ask questions. My first question would be, there's one concern that you don't have access to the memory cards. The other concern is the potential gap in the continuity of knowledge that potentially exists for almost 3 months, from maybe the end of June until you now have access to replace the cameras. How concerned are you about this gap, and can you still guarantee that nothing is being diverted? And the second issue I would be interested in is, once you have access to the Karaj facility, apart from replacing the cameras, will you be able to verify any potential activity at the facility? Thank you.
Many questions in one.
Sorry.
But let me go one by one. First of all, the idea of concern is, I think, something I never hid. On the contrary, I said it in all words in my reports, that I was really concerned. And this is why I have been insisting ever since my visit in last September, I think it was, when we agreed to do all the servicing and replace all the equipment, and this part did not happen for Karaj. I expressed that concern because of the second of what you said in the second part of your question, which is the danger that we would be losing indispensable information. Of course, that concern exists, but number one, to start mitigating that concern, the first thing you have to do is to put the cameras back. First thing. And this we are going to do. And it's very important. The second problem, or the second issue, is this gap, like you said, this delta that you have from the moment the cameras were stopped until now. And for that, as I have also indicated, we have ways to try to reconcile the facts on the ground with what Iran is going to be telling us soon. We will, when we go back, we will see certain activity, and we don't forget that this is a facility that we know very well. We know the kind of equipment there is, and when you know an equipment, and when you are familiar with a production chain, a production line, you know how much this normally produces, given the normal circumstances. You know how much has been installed. You know how much they declare. So you can, the experts working for the agency are going to be receiving this information and making their own assessment and trying to put the jigsaw puzzle together. So it's not impossible. It's more difficult because there has been a loss, and you cannot make up for that loss. But in this case, in verification, in safeguards, we have many ways, we have many methodologies, we have many approaches, which in some cases involve the images, the raw material, if you wish, but also analysis, projections, modeling that can help us put the story back together. So I don't know if that explains more or less. Yeah? Yes?
Nilüfer Ibrahim from Iran International. I have several questions as well, if I may.
Yeah, please.
Actually, the first one is there any formal agreement between IAEA and Iran on Karaj, and was there any reason that you didn't issue a joint statement with the Iranian? Yeah. The second question is that if you're presenting a model of these cameras to the Iranian, does that mean that you're officially helping the Iranian judicial and security team to investigate about what happened inside Iran? The other question is that about your recent remark. You usually say a sophisticated and ambitious program like Iran's program doesn't go with the usual safeguard agreements. Do you need, or do you suggest that there should be some new agreement between Iran and IAEA, which would be included in the talks?
Okay, so let's go one by one, because there's a lot and I don't want to forget any element. First of all, you said, why not a joint statement? Well, as you know, when I traveled to Iran, very recently. We worked on a joint statement, and as I said at the time, our talks were inconclusive. This is the word I chose. We were not able to finish it as I had expected. The Iranian side themselves, they recognized that it was a matter of a couple of things. And so ever since, we have been working and talking and exchanging. The fact that we didn't have a joint statement is because I could not travel in time. The most important thing was to do it fast for me. That was a big concern that I had. I wanted to have my cameras back as soon as possible. So we agreed in my conversations with the president of the Atomic Energy Organization of Iran that we would be exchanging and trying to come to either a joint statement or the way in which we did it, which is a document of the agency, a GovInf, which is a type of document that we have official, where I state that we agreed on the elements that are part of the agreement. So it's a different vehicle, if you want. It's not a joint statement, but it's an agreement with them. The second thing that you were asking was whether this would mean that we would be allowing the judiciary or the security institutions of Iran to work on these cameras. I think this is very important. As you may have seen in the agreement, we have agreed to give them, to allow them to observe these cameras. As I was saying, when let me open this. Well, it won't open now. But the important thing is that, first of all, this is not new. It has been done in the past. It's part of the practice. When you are going to be inspecting a country and putting equipment, it is their legitimate right to say, well, I want to have a look. What are you going to put there? And this is standard practice. And this is what we are going to do. Of course, they cannot touch it without us allowing that. This is why this is a very protocolized, I would say, operation where my inspectors are there. The Iranian inspectors may ask to see something, to open maybe this module that I showed to you. So I don't know. It will depend on what they want to see. So we don't have a problem. We never had a problem in doing that, and there's nothing extraordinary about that. And you had a final point, but I don't remember which was.
I just wanted to know, is that a part of helping Iranian to investigate on what happened inside the Karaj facility attack, or just for the...
No, it's different. With regards to what happened before, it's up to them what they are doing or what they are investigating. I don't have any say in that, apart from when it has to do with my equipment, the equipment of the agency, which they can only access in the presence and under the supervision of the inspectors. So this is the past. For the future, what you do is this. You let them have a look. Let me put it in very colloquial terms. You let them have a look to make sure, if they want to make sure that there is nothing there that would be a compromise for their security or anything of the sort. So I hope that satisfies your... François.
François Murphy from Reuters, IDG. Since we have this prop...
Can you open it, Max, please? Yeah.
Could you? There's a lot of one issue with these cameras is the data storage medium. So can you show us where that is exactly?
The data storage medium is here.
Okay, so it's that whole box.
This is the module, the whole module.
Okay, good.
And the data storage is here. And what I didn't say is these are the batteries here.
Okay.
This part here, the black part here.
Okay, so what your agreement with Iran doesn't address is the issue of the missing data storage medium from the camera that was destroyed and that you saw the remnants of. First of all, did you come to any understanding with Iran on that? And
Not yet.
No. Okay. And so Is it in any way understandable to you how that might have disappeared as part of this, in this sabotage? Is that credible that it would have simply vanished?
We have doubts about that, and this is why we are asking them. Where is it? And I'm hopeful they are going to come up with an answer, because it's very strange that it disappears. Yeah.
Hello.
Hello.
Gita Aryan with the Voice of America.
Yeah.
I believe you have answered a couple of the questions I had. That, all right, it is standard practice for the country to inspect the cameras. And also, with respect to the answer you gave to Stephanie regarding how you're going to put together the missing information that you have, because you've said that the information is very necessary for you to be able to deliver to the delegations who are negotiating, because they have to consider what's there, what's not there, and, you know, what they need to consider.
Yeah.
So is there a margin of error probably in your assessment without actual?
It's very
access?
small.
Very small. And about Iran's past activities, is there any agreement on that? I mean, yes, you're going to be talking about them, but how do you believe you may get your answers finally after 2 years in that regard?
Well, I must keep trying. So far, we haven't been successful, true, like you say, for almost 2 years. And in fact, your question is very pertinent, because in the context of the joint statement that never was, we were also addressing that in some way. But unfortunately, since we were not able to see each other again, we decided to set this aside. But we are going to be starting that conversation again in the very near future. So, you know, my obligation is to keep pushing and to try to get these clarifications as soon as possible. These are serious things that need to be clarified. I said it many times.
Do you feel like this time you may get more answers?
I wish I knew.
Thank you.
Hello, it's Badr from Sharq News. Excuse me for my questions. Is this camera easily to be damaged? And by what can be damaged easily? And another questions we've heard from the Iranian Atomic Energy, that will be another agreement with you within a month. Any comment on that?
Another agreement with me?
With the agency within a month.
Well, this has to do with what, Madame, you were just asking now. I think we have been really trying to focus on these outstanding issues, including by trying to set some, not deadlines, because that is a little bit, you know, impractical, because in this kind of investigations and processes, one question leads to the other, and you don't know exactly how long it will take. But for us, there is a big sense of urgency. It's been, like you were saying, 2 years, in some cases a bit less, but since we started putting questions on these places. So we are going to be trying to be as focused and as efficient as possible. Regarding the physical damage is a function of what you see. Of course, these cameras are not supposed to resist the impossible. If there is an earthquake or if there is some explosion or whatever, they are not prepared for that. And it's not the idea. They have a case, as you can see, which is pretty sturdy. This thing is quite heavy. And in fact, the lens and the module and the battery are not. So this is basically a pretty solid protection that it has. But of course, it is not something that is there as an all-resistant kind of protection. So,
Even by the cyber attacks?
Sorry?
Even by the cyber attacks?
No, cyber attack is not possible because this is not connected to, one of the ways to protect this, and I think is a very good question, is to, of course you could if you would like to, but in this case, this camera is in a sort of isolation. it records the information, it registers the information, and then when you finish with the operation, then our inspectors retrieve it and analyze it. But it's not connected to any grid or to any, there's no cabling to some computer somewhere, okay? Very good.
Albert Otti, DPA, Chairman Press Agency. A question about the cameras going beyond Karaj. Now, you said, and we all know that the IAEA cannot retrieve the data until there is an agreement on the JCPOA.
Indeed.
Does that only apply to the data collected in Karaj or to the data from camera collected at all nuclear installations in Iran?
Very good question. We have I would say 2/3 of the cameras that we have in Iran are related to the Comprehensive Safeguards Agreement, which is applicable in all circumstances. As I was saying in the beginning of our conversation, there were some additional means of monitoring that were allowed to be installed as a result of my February 2020 trip. So the cameras that are affected by this is Karaj and other places as well.
Okay.
It's not only Karaj that were added, if you want, or kept, which is also another way to put it, from the old JCPOA days. But the bulk of our verification equipment is permanent and continues to run.
Mr. Grossi, Homaletsky
Hello.
from Press TV. Hello. Looking at how Iran has seen this agreement, Iran says that by allowing the agency to reinstall these cameras at the site, and this coming after this sabotage attack that's been blamed on Israel, Iran says it's showing its goodwill beyond its safeguards commitments to allow for progress in the Vienna talks. I was wondering if that's the same vein that you see this move by Iran. How do you personally assess this agreement that was reached and its effects on the talks? And have you been in contact with any, for instance, E3 representatives on how this is actually having an impact on the process of the Vienna talks? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, I'm in contact with everybody all the time. Today, yesterday, all the time. With all. Iran, the E3, China, Russia, all of them. So in terms of the effect, how this is seen or judged, is a subjective question that you're putting to me. So I wouldn't know how the E3 take it or how others take it. I will say something. This was, for me, when you ask about me, I was concerned about the ability of the agency to provide as full a picture as it's needed to have a clear idea of what is going on there. Which at the same time is, of course, indispensable for the JCPOA negotiation. But it's not something which is done because of or as a way to. Of course, it has any agreement in life is an agreement, is not a disagreement. So an agreement in and by itself is a constructive thing. It's a way to say, okay, we were not seeing eye to eye, now we see eye to eye on this, on the cameras in Karaj. Yeah.
Sorry. Again, going back to what Albert was talking about and this sort of kind of black box arrangement you have with Iran on the JCPOA monitoring equipment,
yeah.
Right? So it's now 10 months since you had access to any of these recordings, right? You reached this deal in February, right? So isn't the value of these recordings diminishing over time? Isn't there a point where this is simply no longer sustainable for you? How do you view that? Sorry, just since I'm only going to get one shot at this. So then there's also what you mentioned before about being able to reconstruct what happened in this gap. Are you saying that you can do that without access to the recordings? Is something else you're going to be using in the interim, or are you simply waiting to have access to this data, which could take years for all we know? And then one small point. At the end of your agreement, you mentioned, or of your announcement, sorry, You mentioned extra technical steps that will be taken by the end of the year. It's very vague. I was wondering what is that? Is that something, you know, innocuous, or what are we talking about?
No, it's not innocuous. It's important, and it's the servicing of the equipment, memories, batteries, some other things which are very, very, very important.
So you've agreed to install, but hang on, the end of the year is very soon, because you said you're going to install these cameras in the coming days, and then there's something else that happens before the end of the year. So
as I was just saying, there are other cameras, there are other means of monitoring that we have which need to be serviced.
It's the equipment beyond Karaj?
Yeah,
Okay.
beyond Karaj. And your other question is, I think you answer it yourself. It's, you know, first, it cannot take years. This is, if you remember, Francois, I described this in the past as a stopgap. This additional capabilities that we have impending as an IOU is something that works for some time. And then it doesn't mean that the information there loses value. The information has value, but the whole operation, in the way which it was conceived as a bridge towards something, and that cannot be a very long bridge.
Sorry, but obviously you've been saying that since February. So I'm wondering, like, as of what point is this whole exercise futile?
Well, I think this is very difficult to say, but not impossible to assess. It's a matter that here, yes, of a very intimate relationship with the JCPOA negotiation. And this is not in my court.
Hassin Zitouni, sorry, from RT Arabic. Based on, in addition of installing the cameras, will the IAEA will have permanent inspectors or observers in Tehran?
We do have.
In Iran?
We do have.
You will keep this based on the
yes.
protocol?
We are there all the time.
Okay. It seems like the main question is the trust and mutual trust between the IAEA and the other parties and Iran. Have you achieved that trust? Do you trust Iran when it says that its program is purely civilian and not military? Second question, as Director General of the IAEA,
yes.
and the talks are ongoing here in Vienna, will you be able to recommend that the sanctions will be lifted sooner than later so that we can move forward? Thank you.
Important topics on the issue of trust. I trust everybody, but I verify everybody. That's the nature of my job, and the trust is something that you build with time. This is why a couple of months ago, when I was not able to see the foreign minister and others, I was insisting. I didn't have any pride in that or any false sense of pride, because we needed to get to know each other and to be able to have a direct line like in normal life, and this was not happening. Now we are starting to build up a relation, but in any case, I'm the IAEA. I'm not a friend or a foe. I'm the International Inspectorate. So everything we do must be based on inspection. It's the only way forward. Regarding the sanctions, it's a political question. I hate to say, I never say it's not for me, that question, but this question is not for me.
Thank you very much. Turkish News Agency Anadolu. Maybe you answered the question, but I photographed and I missed the maybe answer.
Yes.
You agreed about the Karaj facilities. What about the other facilities? We can say it is a start of progress. After the agreement with the on the Karaj, you can change the other cameras or other storage, the other facilities.
This was the only place where I had not been able to do what I needed to do. In the other places, everything was more or less in order, so I didn't have a problem. In the case of Karaj, because the cameras had been destroyed and needed to be replaced, it was not a matter of replacing the memory or changing the battery, servicing in the jargon. It was a matter of coming there, doing some work, putting up new cameras, prepare them, etc., etc. And we had a problem there. And this is when this whole discussion, which has lasted for 3 months, unfortunately, started back in September. And now we are going to do it very soon.
Hi, Dorsa Jabari from Al Jazeera English. When you installed the cameras at Karaj in the past, were they checked by the Iranians? Were they inspected on site?
When I installed,
The cameras,
when I installed
initially, yeah, when they were installed, were they inspected by the Iranians at that time?
these ones, yes, yes. It's pretty standard practice.
Because the investigation that they're wrapping up now in Iran suggests that they believe there was something in one of the cameras that caused the incident. And that's why they're insisting that you go through this
Well,
process.
I don't know about this. What I can tell you is that is, of course, absurd. It is absurd to believe or to say that the IAEA cameras will be part of some sort of sabotage. That is number one. Number two, these cameras do not have any transmitter, any beacon that can be used in the way that it was alleged. So I try to restrain myself because that irritates me enormously. The idea that somebody can be saying that the IAEA can be part of something like this.
I don't mean to irritate you, I'm sorry.
No, you don't irritate me. It's
not that
those
they're
who
saying-
say that.
No, I understand. I don't
Yeah.
think they're saying directly IAEA, but they're saying somebody who may have had access to these cameras. They're investigating still, but they said they're coming to a final conclusion.
Remember what I said, this is impossible. First of all, it's impossible because there is no transmitter. They can check it before we put it. And secondly, because as I was saying, the moment you want to tamper with it, the moment you open it, it's registered. You know exactly what happened, who did it. So it is simply impossible.
Sorry, one follow-up question.
Yeah.
Is it possible to do your job properly at the workshops or any of the facilities without cameras present?
I would say it would be almost impossible. I mean, you can have other ways by visiting, by drawing inventories in the old-fashioned way, if you want. But no, I would say that cameras and as other electronic means of monitoring are indispensable for modern safeguards practice.
Hello, thank you so much for your answers.
Hello.
I'm Mohammed Shakir from Okta TV, Austria. We heard some unofficial reports from some countries about unknown places in Iran for atom activities. And my question is, did you have any negotiate with JCPOA or with Iran or agency has any plan about these reports?
We don't have any information about hidden locations or other places where activities could be taking place. I will need to wrap up, so please, if you have any additional important questions, happy to. Stephanie, yes?
Thank you so much. So this is Stephanie Lichtenstein again. I'm a freelancer, and I have a follow-up question to what I asked
With
you
pleasure.
before. So since you still have regular access to the Fordo facility, nuclear plant, could you confirm or can you say that the advanced centrifuges that are being operated there are being produced or have come from the Karaj facility? Is that a way for you to?
It would be a logical conclusion.
Okay.
Hi, Jordi from
Hola.
EFE. I have a very short, difficult question maybe.
Oh.
We who are following this for many years, honestly, we were not surprised that you have a deal now. So it seems like Iran is playing with this agreement as it's a bargaining chip in negotiation, or is it a sign of that there is some kind of movement towards an agreement? What's your personal opinion?
Yes, people talk about this, a pattern of, for me, to be honest, I can have personal opinions, but for me what's important is that I have the equipment in place. And one can have speculation about when this happened and why and the timing of it. But all I can say is that it wasn't easy. And so I was not discounting that there would be an agreement. So the important thing is that the cameras are going to be back in a few days.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much. Thank you. You want to?